Good day, everyone! Before we start our discussion for today's topic, I would like to introduce ourselves. We are the BIT 168 and we are here to explain and deliberate the information about the impact of globalization on how people communicate. By the way, I am Charles Michael Damaso and I will be your MC for today's discussion. And before we start our topic, we would like to give some ideas or trivia with a connection for today's topic. Please welcome the BIT 168 Set B.
So, hi everyone, my name is Mr. Gonzalo Julio, and I am the first reporter from SET. First, what comes to your mind when you say globalization? So, anyone? So, kindly comment your answer on our chat box here in Google Meet for recitation. So, globalization is the word used to describe the growing interdependence of the world's economy, culture, and population, brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services, technology, and flow of investment, people, and information.
Large-scale globalizations began in the 1820s and in the late 19th century and early 20th century drove rapid expansions in the connectivity of the world's economies and cultures. Thank you.
The term global city was subsequently popularized by sociologist Saskia Sassen in her work The Global City, New York, London, Tokyo in 1991.
The other meaning or definition of the globalization is a globalization means the speed up of movement and exchange of human being, good, and service in capital technology or cultural practices all over the planet.
One of the effects of globalization is that it promotes and increases interaction between different religions and population around the globe.
Here's the list. A list of significant types of globalization. First one is economic globalization. Second is social globalization. Third is cultural globalization. Fourth is political globalization. Next is environmental globalization. And next is technological globalization and financial globalization, and the last one is geographical globalization.
Now, let's move to the other trivia that is about communicate or communication.
Please don't forget to list down some important parts of the discussion. So the word communicate is from the Latin word that means commerce.
Communication is the sending and receiving of information and can be one-on-one or between groups of people and can be face-to-face or through communication devices.
Since the 1820s when the globalization started, there have been many changes to communicate people with each other because of the globalization.
Globalization has allowed for economic growth, poverty reduction, and general development. For some countries, it has been estimated that the proportion of people living in extreme poverty in developing world has been declining.
Thank you, BIT 168 Set B. Now, the continuation of this discussion will be held by BIT 168 Set A, and the continuation will be started by Mr. Alberto.
What is the impact of globalization on people? For many developing nations, globalization has led to an improvement in standard of living through improved roads and transportation, improved healthcare, and improved education due to the global expansion of corporations.
How does globalization affect in organizational communication? Globalization has had a number of effects on organizational communication. One of the most notable impacts is the increased use of technology.
With the advent of the internet and other forms of communication technology, organizations can now communicate with employees customers, and suppliers located around the world.
The global issues affect communication. Cultural and global issues affect communication by the means of its affectivity on the people itself.
It may be affecting us individually or as a group, therefore may spark miscommunication or positive interaction.
Culturally, may use as an example our language barrier in our own country.
Now let's move on to the advantage, disadvantage, and the positive and negative effects to the impact of globalization to communication.
First, let's have the advantage of globalization in communication. The advantages of globalization in communication is increased access to information. Globalization has made it easier to access information from different parts of the world through the internet, social media, and other forms of communication.
Now let's move on the disadvantage of globalization in communication. The disadvantage of globalization in communication are cultural differences. People from different countries often have different cultural norms, values, and expectations.
These differences can impact communication and lead to misunderstanding. Time zone difference. When people are communicating across different time zones, it can be a challenge.
Next one, the positive effects of the impact of globalization to communication. The positive effects include the ease of communication as English becomes the universal language, lingua franca, and the speed and access of communication facilitated by the internet.
Next, the negative effects of globalization to communication. The negative effects include the loss of minority languages as majority languages become normative, and the decrease in grammatical skills as communication use internet, shorthand, and abbreviation.
In short, globalization affects language both positively and negatively.
What are the three major impacts of globalization on global communication? The ANU of 2017 enumerates the three major impacts of globalization on global communication, and these are: number 1, availability of information.
Conduct and social awareness for people across the world to make use of the worldwide web and resources available.
What is an example of globalization in communication? Platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. facilitate individuals to communicate with others with similar interests or background easier.
It has led to global online communities that transcend geographical and cultural boundaries.
The movement of people across the border is another example of globalization.
Here are our top tips for effective cross-cultural communication. Maintain etiquette. Many cultures have a specific etiquette around the way they communicate. Avoid slang. Speak slowly. Keep it simple. Practice active listening. Take turns to talk. Write things down. Avoid closed questions.
That's the information about the impact of globalization in how people communicate and other information that has connection with it. We hope you learned something for today's discussion on this topic. Thank you.